everyone. This is Erik with Gambling News, and I'm here today with the co-founder and CEO of Chalkline, Dan Kustelski. Dan comes from a very wide background. He is a West Point grad, received his degree in engineering, spent 5 years in the Army, and then moved on to the civilian sector, where he has excelled and become a somewhat of a gaming guru. And most of his civilian career has been spent in gaming. Now working with Chalkline to help spread the news, and has been able to form partnerships with a number of casino and sport betting operators across the U.S., as well as a number of media partners that are helping to push the message as well. So diving right in, thank you, Dan, for joining us today. And one of the first questions I have for you is, you started as an engineer in the Army. How did you go from that to gaming?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that nice warm introduction. It is an unusual career path to go from West Point into sports betting. So I got out of the Army in 01, moved actually to South Africa, and I got my MBA at a program there, and during my MBA program, Sepp Blatter announced that South Africa would be the host to the 2010 World Cup. And so I wanted to stay. I wanted to be involved somehow, some way in sports marketing. And so I actually transitioned from my MBA program into a company called Octagon, which is in the sports marketing industry. And so that was my transition from military to sports. But then soon, where sports betting is legal, there's leagues and teams that get married up with sponsors that are sponsoring, the sports books and the gaming operators. And so, I got a pretty familiar with the gaming industry. And then in 08, 09, I transitioned from agency side to client side, and I was working for a gaming company. And when we built a platform, started a sports book in 09 and 2010, and that was really my transition from the military into gaming.
Well, it certainly worked out well for you, and we're glad that you've been able to take Chalkline to the level that it is today. And one of your primary focuses these days is gaming as a service.
Yes.
It's certainly now, especially after the death of PASPA in 2018, receiving a lot of attention in the US. Where do you see this specific niche headed, and what is the primary focus of Chalkline as it pertains to gaming as a service?
Sure. So we started Chalkline in 2000, and incorporated it in 16, really kind of in earnest 2017, and that was prior to the repeal of PASPA.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we see the industry, I mean, it's flourishing. I think 28, 29 states have now legalized sports betting in some form or fashion, whether that's retail or mobile, in a relatively short span of time. And casinos have completely, warmed up to it, wrapped their arms around this additional form of gambling. And
Right.
and maybe, from 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, when sports betting was really just legal in Nevada, and those casinos also had sports books attached to them, sports betting was, less than, say 1% or maybe 2% of the GGR in those in the gaming, of the entire gaming environment in Nevada. Whereas, if you look at New Jersey now, sports betting is a much larger percentage of the GGR inside of that state. So it plays a much more prominent role in gaming inside of these land-based casinos and in gaming as a whole. So what we're seeing is this massive proliferation of sports betting. And how Chalkline fits into that is really around the education and the acclimation of sports betting to sports fans in America. it's a form of gambling that's well understood in other parts of the world, but really not all that well understood in the United States. We say this a lot: never overestimate the American sports bettor. Just understanding things like, what does a money line mean, or what does plus 150 mean, or minus 200. Those are all things that might be second nature in other countries. Here in the United States, if you haven't been to Vegas and you haven't and maybe bet on sports before, you're brand new to it. And so we built Chalkline to really help people understand what those terms mean. Engage with sports fans around sports betting terminology, things like spreads and money lines and overs and unders. And so we built a platform, and that platform creates free to play games.
Mhm.
They're just parlay games, and we provide those free to play games to operators, to sports books that are looking to acquire customers. And then media companies as well that are looking to educate and acclimate the people that are engaging with that particular media company to sports betting, and in a fun and entertaining way.
Now, speaking of your partnerships, you've had several big uh, arrangements made already this year, and of course prior, but
Sure.
a lot of movement in 2021. What is it that you look for when you're trying to team up with another entity that's looking at the sports betting space?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll just take the media companies as an example. Media companies do a great job of creating content and building viewership and audience and eyeballs.
Mhm.
Probably less good at building a database. And so when we approach media companies, we just share with them our experience of building an actionable database, whether those are mobile phone numbers or their email addresses, of people that have played our games and that are interested in sports betting, and want to learn more about about betting on sports. And so we help them understand the value of that as well. When we look at customer acquisition costs in the United States right now, anywhere between kind of $300 or $400 up to $800 or $900 per new depositing customer. So that's per player, that operators are paying to acquire those customers. And that's really where we help those media companies understand the value of their audience and the value of collecting good data and building those databases. That customer acquisition cost is also relevant on the operator side. So when we talk to operators in states maybe where sports betting has just recently become legal or is about to become legal, we share with them the ROI on money spent to build those databases prior to legalization, and the inevitability of sports betting becoming legal in their particular state. And that if they start now, and building that relationship with sports fans that are leaning towards sports betting, it's far more effective and has a far higher return on investment than maybe waiting. And then once a state goes live, all the operators are going to be spending a lot of money on customer acquisition costs. So
Without a doubt.
that's really where we fit into the environment and in the growth of the industry.
Now, when we talk about sports betting, there are actually two segments, right? You have the land-based sports betting, you have the online sports betting. Several
Right.
states are still not grasping the concept or the importance of offering online options. New Jersey saw exactly how important online gambling was. Other states have hashed around with it, and there are still others that are just completely, throwing up a brick wall and saying, no, we don't want online gambling. What How can we get those people to see the importance of online and what it's going to do for the overall industry?
Yeah, Eric. I mean, there's some case studies on both sides, but both of those, sides really do point to the proliferation of mobile and online sports betting. New Jersey's, New Jersey sports betting and online gaming, it's probably about 90% of all sports betting that happens in New Jersey is online, with only
Mhm.
10% retail. And then you look at other states like Mississippi that have probably put a governor on the scope and the size of the sports betting tax revenues that the state can get, because they've never legalized mobile or online sports betting. And then there's other case studies where in Iowa they said, look, we're gonna legalize sports betting, but in order for you to sign up to an online sports book, we're going to make you go to a land-based casino first.
Right.
And they did that for 18 months. But then on the 19th month, 20th month, 21st month, sports betting exploded. When people could just simply sign up from anywhere and not be tethered to a land-based
Mhm.
casino to go sign up. So I think what we're seeing now, and probably future legislation in states, really do get to see this data, and that data tells the story that you really can't stop, or you shouldn't be looking at stopping online sports betting and mobile
I
sports
agree.
betting. It's happening anyway, though, Eric, and to some extent, the American Gaming Association did a great job, prior to PASPA, to educate the industry that sports betting is happening anyway. Online
Mhm.
and mobile sports betting is happening anyway. People are going offshore to bet on sports. What you really need to do is you need to create an environment that is legal and regulated, and that embraces all forms of sports betting, so that you can prevent people from possibly gambling offshore,
Sure.
with unregulated markets. So
And the,
hopefully these case studies are starting to be seen by the state legislators, and we are starting to see more and more states
sure.
are leading with online retail, and even online gaming sometimes, in the case of Michigan, where they legalized online casinos and online poker as well. So we're starting to see those case studies come to fruition, and I think it is making an impact on states as they decide to legalize sports betting.
I think eventually, if not all, certainly 99% of the states will come around. I think either out of necessity because everyone else is doing it, or because of the realization that, hey, it's really not that bad, and it offers so much more protection than allowing people to go to the offshore, the unregulated sites. There's not anything necessarily wrong with the offshore operators per se, but they can't be regulated. And by bringing it back home, by bringing the activity back home, the states win, the residents win, right? The state programs win. I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
there's really no downside
Right.
overall.
Yeah.
The states can develop their gambling addiction programs, which right now they don't have the funds to do, and they also
Right.
don't have any way of knowing how much it's needed,
That's right.
because there's no way to track the activity. So,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
and I think, like you mentioned, we will continue to see the shift more toward online gaming. I think it's interesting that even Nevada is finally coming around and saying, "Hey, we might want to get in on the iGaming space as well." I
Right.
think that speaks volumes, considering the fact that the whole state of Nevada is built around casinos.
Yeah, that's exactly
There's
right.
a transformation going on that is much bigger than I think some people realize, and we're going to look back at this 8 years from now and see an industry that is completely different, and not just in the U.S. but around the world. Which brings me to another question. When the Supreme Court killed PASPA in 2018, that was a catalyst for change, not only in the US, but it also seems to be driving change in the rest of the world as well.
Yes.
Um, from your point of view, how much has PASPA changed the way the world views sports betting?
I think quite a bit. I think what we're seeing, the impact of the repeat appeal of PASPA on the global gaming industry has been pretty intense. Certainly in the fact that you now have massive operators that have been operating in Europe for a decade or longer, now looking at the United States and seeing an opportunity for them to come into a regulated market, albeit it's a state by state approach, which is a challenge for some of those European operators, but still nonetheless, seeing the United States as potentially the largest sports betting market in the world, regulated sports betting market in the world. So there's a lot of investment from Europe coming over into the United States, and also we're seeing a lot of activity in companies going public. So companies that might not have ever really contemplated, coming in and listing on the NASDAQ in the United States, they're starting to do that as well. So while there is certainly, from a sports bettor perspective, it's, if I'm living in Tennessee and now Tennessee is legalized, yes, I can gamble legally with the BetMGMs and the Action 247s and the DraftKings and the FanDuels. But more from an industry perspective, we were seeing a lot of industry operators coming into America, investing in America because of the size of the market that the U.S. will eventually get to. And I just venture to say that, and I say this a lot, is that, we're still in the first quarter. There's a long way to go. New York hasn't fully, legalized, sports betting. Florida, California, Texas, Ohio. There's still a lot of major states that, with large populations of potential sports bettors to grow the market.
I agree. Big question. We're now almost in August. That means football is almost less than a month away, September 9th, for the first game of the season.
Yes.
From your point of view, how will things be different this year compared to last year, and obviously even compared to the year before when states were just getting started with the new football season? This is really going to be the first season that people can concentrate on football without worrying about the pandemic. Right.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
There was only a very small handful of states that was ready for the football season in 2019. So
Yes.
Where do you see the industry going come September 9th?
Sure. I really do. Well, and you know what? I'm actually going to rewind it back just a little bit. Preseason for the NFL starts on the 5th of August. That's the kickoff, and I think that's unlike last year where it was late July and there were still questions on whether or not the college football season was going to kick off or the NFL season was going to kick off. So there wasn't an awful lot of time to plan. I think this year we've had a long runway to plan as an industry. I think that way more states are legal now than they were 2 years ago when there was also this opportunity to plan. And we're going to see, if you do live in a state where sports betting is legal, you're going to see a lot of advertising, a lot of partnerships between sports books and sports teams, NFL teams, that will, that you're going to hear about. But I mean, the planning process really started in almost right after March Madness for a lot of these operators. I had heard anecdotally that on June 15th was the time when all the operators were panicking if they haven't started their process and their planning for football season. But football is a really unique time period for the U.S. betting calendar. So it is, it's coming off of a pretty quiet months of June and July, going into August, and there's some pent up demand for just betting in general. But then there's so much passion around the NFL and college football as well. There's some operators out there in states where college football, the betting on college football is equal to the NFL.
Sure.
So there's a lot of enthusiasm, and certainly when I look at states like Mississippi and in the Southeast, Tennessee, I hear of operators where it is a really big deal to
Oh, sure.
to
Without a doubt.
acquire. Yeah, to acquire customers. So it's a great time for sometimes, when people bet for the first time, they're probably going to bet on their favorite team or their favorite player. And this is where the NFL season and the college football season really do play a role. But I also see an opportunity where land-based casinos have, they're now, they're now allowing people to come back in. They've had a really good, last quarter, casinos as a whole. And so there's going to be a lot of viewing events at casinos. There's going to be a lot of retail activations, and then there's a lot of opportunity for casino groups and for operators to really push people to that, go to that ticket window, place your first bet. And there's more states now where sports betting is legal than ever. So I think that there's also going to be certainly an online push and a lot of advertising, but I think that there's going to be a lot of activity in the current infrastructure of gaming, which is the land-based casino groups, and those casinos where sports betting is legal.
I would imagine too, along with that, is we're going to see, a large ramp up of competition among operators vying for position and vying for new customers. Where do you see operators targeting their efforts, their marketing efforts? Is it going to be through, bonuses? Is it going to be through sign up uh, gimmicks, or how will they try hardest to attract new customers with the start of the NFL season?
Sure. I think, there's a couple of states that track bonusing,
Mhm.
as a percentage of sports betting handle or GGR. If you look at Colorado, if you take the last year, there was a huge ramp up in July, August, and September. Leading up to the NFL season. I think we're going to see a similar type of data trends towards operators that are really just trying to get people to come onto their books, sign up, make a deposit and place a wager. Same thing in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we're exposed by the state exposes, bonusing amounts, and we also saw the same thing happen. There was a spike in September typically, and then there's a spike around the Super Bowl. So those are events where we're going to see a lot of bonusing, whether that is incentivizing people to bet on their particular team, whether those are sign up and deposit bonuses. We're going to see a lot of that type of activation, but we're going to see a lot of lots of radio, lots of online and digital advertising. Last year, FanDuel spent $500 million. DraftKings spent $500 million. Both of those, that was their marketing spend. I can't imagine that this year that they won't, at least double that. So we're going to see a lot of advertising and promotion in the states where it's legal, and even starting to see some national campaigns, from the operators, trying to get people onto their books and account them as a monthly active user.
It's a scramble now, that's for sure. With so
Yeah,
much
without a
more
doubt,
opportunity out there across the U.S., and there's all of the operators are going to have to ramp up their activities and
they
fight
will.
more. Um, Having said that, is it beneficial for a new operator to get involved with the sports betting industry? Is there any advice that you would give to someone looking to get started with so much competition currently in place?
Yeah, that's a good question, and Eric, that's one that I get a lot. I think that the bigger operators are running a certain race. They're spending a lot on marketing and advertising to acquire customers, and I think that there's, but there is opportunity in states, and for new entrants. And it's really just about being very comfortable with, not spending a lot of money, being very judicious with marketing spend, making sure it's a good ROI. Are you going to take 20% market share in some of these states? Of course not. But can you penetrate the market and get to a reasonable market share based on your marketing spend? I mean, we know that marketing is typically for online operators, anywhere between 25 to 30% in mature markets like in Europe. We're seeing way more than that of 25 to 30%. We're seeing more of that of their EBITDA here in the United States. But nonetheless, it's really about being efficient and almost running your own race,
Mhm.
and being comfortable with that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in localization. If you're in a few states, be really good and be incredibly relevant to the people inside of those states. If you're in Indiana type promotions, Indiana teams are going to be the teams that most people are going to wager on. Indiana sports. Same thing with Tennessee, same thing with Colorado, same thing with Michigan. So it's really about just understanding your local market and really just honing in on an ROI on your marketing spend to acquire customers at a rate that makes sense and that makes sense from an ROI perspective.
Well, if there's anyone that can help them figure all that out, I'm sure that you can certainly do it. Dan, I know that you have some other things that you have to take care of today, so I don't want to take up
Sure.
more of your time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time you've given to us. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we part ways for the day?
No, I'm excited about NFL season. I'm excited about college football season. There's a lot of opportunities out there for a lot of operators and a lot of media companies to acquire customers, and we just
Definitely.
believe that free-to-play games is a good way to sample your products.
I agree. I think it's going to be a fascinating couple of years. I think Chalkline is going to be in a great position to help the industry grow and mature in a responsible way. So I'm looking forward to circling back with you in about 6 months or so and catching up to see how things have been going as the NFL season progresses and the company progresses. So I appreciate your time, Dan. I wish you the best and definitely look forward to speaking with you again.
Great. Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.